right, well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us on very short notice to have an announcement today with regard to redistricting, which is a once in every 10-year event here in Arkansas and across the country. As the Attorney General and as a member of the Board of Apportionment, it is my job to oversee the process of redrawing the legislative districts and boundaries. The Board of Apportionment consists of the Attorney General, the Secretary of State, and the Governor in Arkansas. And I think that it's important that we bring together a team to accomplish this important task of redrawing the legislative boundaries. Following the U.S. Census, which again is every 10 years, however, because of COVID-19 pandemic, the data and the numbers are late getting to us. But every 10 years, as we look in Arkansas and across the country at the population shifts, then we want to make sure in Arkansas that these legislative districts are fair and that they are equal as possible. And the redistricting criteria in Arkansas is one person, one vote, and with equal population within constitutional variances. This redistricting process is going to be citizen-focused and not legislator-focused. And I think that's important because we want to make sure all citizens in the state of Arkansas are fairly represented. One of the most important jobs of my administration is being a member of the Board of Apportionment. And so today I'm excited to announce that leading our team at the Attorney General's office in redistricting efforts is going to be Mr. Doyle Webb. Doyle is going to be the redistricting director for the Attorney General's office for the Board of Apportionment. And joining Doyle in this are Andy Davis and Colonel Doug House. All three of these gentlemen have experience as former legislators. They bring that to the table, as well as two of them are attorneys and one is an engineer. And so together they have 50 years experience in government, engineering, law. All of this plays an important role as we take on the incredible task of drawing the legislative districts. The redistricting team, again comprised of those three. Doyle Webb comes to the office most recently having served as the chairman of the state Republican Party and the counsel at the Republican National Committee. He also, again, was a state legislator serving in the state Senate. He was the chief of staff to the late Lieutenant Governor Winthrop Rockefeller and served as a justice of the peace and practiced law for 25 years in Saline County. Colonel Doug House served as a state House member up until this year, and he was a colonel in the United States Army. He served on a number of different committees in the State House. Former Representative Andy Davis is a former member of the House of Representatives, served on a number of committees. He is a businessman and professional engineer, and he brings that experience to us. So at this time, I would like to introduce the Director of the Redistricting for the Attorney General's Office, Mr. Doyle Webb.
Thank you, General Rutledge. It is my honor to take on this responsibility and this avenue of service for the state of Arkansas. I look forward to working with former Representative Doug House and former Representative Andy Davis, a great team you have put together. And as you have instructed us, we will move in the direction of this being a citizen-oriented development as we look to districts. And what does that mean? We'll look to keep communities of interest together. We'll look to making districts contiguous and compact districts. And we'll work to have a continuity of representation. Once again, focusing on the citizens, that they know who their elected representatives and senators are and the communities that they'll be working in. It may be a little while before we get started on this. We're still waiting on census numbers to come in, but once they're in, we will be eager to move forward. Once again, General, thank you for the opportunity to giving me this opportunity of service to the state of Arkansas.
Thank you, Doyle. At this time, I'll be happy to open up to any questions that members of the press may have. So the question is whether or not these three individuals are paid staff at the Attorney General's office, and Doyle is going to be a member of the staff. We have contracts with Andy and Colonel House.
All through the Attorney General's office, not through the Board of Enforcement?
Correct. And so we are using funds. Again, Doyle will be a member of the staff of the Attorney General's office, and then we'll be using funds to pay Andy Davis and Colonel Doug House as working through contracts, essentially.
Your director is the former Republican Party chair. You're not going to make this, I mean, you say you make decisions based on communities and people, the citizens of Arkansas Party. Do you expect people to believe that?
Do I expect people to believe that? So the question is whether or not, because Doyle Webb is the former state party chairman, whether or not it will be seen as a partisan effort. And so part of the experience that Doyle and Andy and Colonel House bring to the table is that they have all three been legislators, and I believe that Doyle's experience as party chairman also, because he is familiar and has traveled to all parts of the state, and that it's important for someone to know all parts of Arkansas as we're looking at the data, looking at the individuals, the communities of interest, keeping the contiguous lines of. Not many people, when you say a certain town in Arkansas, can they know which county that town is in, and so unless it's a weatherman. And so I think it's important to have all of this experience together, again, as former legislators, but also to know the state of Arkansas. I don't know whether people believe it or not, Mike. I mean,
so you're saying it's not going to be, the boundaries aren't going to be partisan?
Absolutely not. It would be illegal for the boundaries to be partisan, and we are absolutely not going to draw partisan lines. I think it's important that, and that's why I stated at the onset that this is going to be fair lines drawn based on the population, drawn based on whether or not the contiguous, because what you can have is part of a state house district be over here in one county and another part of it not touch it. So contiguous means it all touches, the entire district touches one another.
General, you mentioned you're still waiting on the census data. What is your team going to be doing to maybe mitigate the fact that maybe the count will be a little bit off because of the pandemic and other factors?
Well, we're hoping that the data is accurate. I think that all of America, and certainly here in Arkansas, we're going to rely on the census to have accurate data. I hope that individuals across the state took time to fill out their census information, so that way we can, it's important not only for the legislative districts and our congressional districts, but also a city council, how much money goes back into those towns, and that's available through the state or available through federal funds. And so we're hopeful that Arkansans took the census seriously and that they filled it out with accurate information, so that way we can draw these fair, accurate lines. And again, it's not just to have that fair representation in our State House and our U.S. Congress, but also it has to do with funding. And I know as I've traveled across Arkansas over the last year, and we would have roundtable meetings, many local leaders would say, please remind people to fill out the census, that we want people to be counted, because it, again, impacts funding that may be available through state or federal entities. We have not had any formal meetings. The Governor, Secretary of State, and I have all met to initially discuss our plans and to start the conversation. However, we have not met formally as the Board of Apportionment. That will, once we have the data, those meetings will start taking place, and as we are able to look at the data, draw the maps, and determine, and again, it's three separate, the Governor, Secretary of State, and the Attorney General, so that it may be that all three of us have individuals or companies that we have contracted with to look at the data and draw the maps. And so that'll be something that I've spoken to the Governor, I've not spoken to the Secretary of State yet, to let them know that we've hired a team, that we're putting a team together. Any other questions? All right, thank you all so much for coming out today. Be safe.